I feel as though I have endured a night of debauchery, awakening to a throbbing headache, aching back, and a stiff neck. Gradually, I bring my focus into sharp relief. Beside me lies a strikingly handsome figure, his straight nose prominent, with raven lashes gently resting against his cheeks, embodying the innocence and softness of youth in his light slumber. Alarmed, I sit upright, incredulous that my arch-nemesis, Xiachi, is sharing a bed with me. Xiachi hails from an exceedingly distinguished lineage. His family has been a bastion of political prominence for 3 generations, and anyone plucked from his vicinity is undoubtedly part of the privileged elite. My existence should be worlds apart from such a paragon of alpha supremacy, let alone harboring a vendetta that has turned us into bitter rivals. Yet, the whims of fate are notoriously unpredictable. One evening during my sophomore year, after finishing my part-time job on the bustling commercial street, I took a shortcut back to campus and chanced upon a dark alley where several inebriated alphas were menacingly blocking the way. The individual being cornered is tall and imposing, exuding an aura of relaxed confidence, effortlessly navigating the encirclement of drunken men and the oppressive stench of inferior pheromones. He must be an alpha. 01. I did not hesitate to call the police, yet I found myself wavering when it came to whether I should step in to assist. I am not adept at fighting. Intervening now would surely leave me bruised and battered. The pain itself does not deter me, but the cost of altruism weighs heavily on my mind. I cannot afford the subsequent medical expenses, especially when I must save for next month's living costs. If I were to sustain injuries, I would be unable to take on part-time work. Just then, the alpha surrounded by trouble felled another drunken man, and I glanced at him, preparing to leave. Xiachi noticed me and lazily called out, "Hey, alpha loitering at the alley entrance, aren't you gonna lend a hand?" The drunken men immediately turned their menacing gazes upon me, warning me to mind my own business. I was compelled to respond, "But it seems you do not require my assistance." The alpha deftly dispatched the last 2 drunken men, then approached me with his hands in his pockets, his narrow eyes flitting between my face and my school badge. "Ah, is this not our school's benevolent and kind-hearted song, the campus heartthrob? In the past, you would rush to help injured little cats. Yet now, when a fellow student finds himself in distress, you turn a blind eye." In an instant, I grasped the implication of his words. Once, upon discovering that students were mistreating cats on campus, I had cleverly devised a trap and caught the culprit. A photo of me cradling an injured kitten was posted on the school forum, garnering much praise in the comments, likening me to a serene guanyin with a bodhisattva-esque kind heart. Xiachi perceived my acts of kindness as mere attempts to win people's favor while ignoring matters that pertain to my own interests, branding me as hypocritical and insincere, which I found to be a sharp rebuke. With nothing to retort, I turned away and departed. Later, I encountered him several times during public lectures at school. Each time I explained problems to my classmates, he would emit short, derisive laughs from behind me. Eventually, the entire school became aware that Xiachi and I, both from the biology department, were at odds. In the past, he had never participated in competitions at any level, but since our paths had crossed, he felt compelled to contend with me for every accolade, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. I accepted the defeats without complaint. However, Xiachi would frequently visit the cafe where I worked, seeking to provoke me, occupying a seat for an entire afternoon while insisting that I serve him alone. I disliked his cynical demeanor, while he loathed my facade of sincerity. How could 2 individuals who harbored such disdain for one another end up sharing a bed? I pressed my fingers hard against my temples, desperately trying to recall the events of yesterday when someone's pheromones went haywire in the school library. I happened to be there and seized the emergency suppressants, following the trail of rosemary pheromones to its source. It was amidst the psychology section of the library that I found Xiachi, his pheromones erupting, the thick scent of rosemary enveloping the entire library. He lay back against the shelves, head thrown back and eyes closed, appearing utterly tormented. I crouched beside him to administer the suppressant, only to be caught off guard as he suddenly came to, pinning my hands behind my neck, and with a sharp pain at the nape, I lost all consciousness. A flash of realization struck me, and I cursed under my breath, a terrifying thought creeping in. I might have been marked. I kicked Xiachi in the abdomen. "Sleep, sleep, sleep. How can you not be dead to the world?" 02. Upon awakening, Xiachi was met by a procession of individuals in white coats, each brandishing various instruments to conduct our basic examinations. To my surprise, we were not in a hospital, but rather at a pheromone research institute. Xiaoqi had undergone a secondary differentiation into an Enigma, a fourth gender distinct from the traditional ABO classifications, a rarity among millions, capable of transforming a marked alpha into his exclusive omega. Unfortunately, I, as an alpha, had been marked by him, creating a physiological link. The previous night, I had been induced into a vulnerable state by his Enigma pheromones. Enigma sensed the agitation of the marked alpha and broke free from its constraints to soothe me in my hospital room. This information was relayed to me by a beta intern responsible for my examinations. Hearing this, my expression must have soured. Lying beside me, Xiaoqi, allowing researchers to adjust their instruments, cast a sidelong glance my way. I say, "Do not wear such a grim visage. I never said I would not take responsibility." Perhaps he intended to comfort me, but his words sounded quite jarring. Did he truly wish to transform me into his exclusive omega? I scoffed, "What responsibility? As an alpha, what do I need you for?" Xiaoqi pushed away the researcher who had reached out to affix an electromagnetic chip, his brow furrowing slightly. "What do you mean by that? Was the meaning not clear enough?" The white-coated personnel surrounding us understood and awkwardly hovered, unsure whether to leave or stay. I cast him a nonchalant glance. "Once we exit this room, let us part ways amicably. We need not speak of this matter again. Understood?" Xiaoqi let out a brief laugh. "That one do. You must take full responsibility. I am a very traditional no Enigma, having taken my first mark. You must certainly bear the consequences. Moreover, our first encounter occurred in the library, a coveted place for all students in the Federation. How could I possibly let you off the hook?" His suggestive tone sent a shiver down my spine. An Enigma can bestow countless marks throughout their lifetime, and the irreverent Xiaoqi did not strike me as the type to be traditionally devoted. What significance did one mark hold? And did I truly desire his mark? I brushed it off. Yet since the marking, he has clung to me like a persistent burr. During my half-month observation at the Research Institute, with our rooms on the 3rd and 6th floors respectively, Xiaoqi would seize every opportunity to dash over and linger in my room. Even when I managed to evict him, he would inevitably return by morning, lying beside me in bed, embracing me like two spoons nestled together. The deputy director of the Pheromone Research Institute, Ms. Lin Zhao, is Xiaoqi's mother, and everyone turned a blind eye to his antics. The beta responsible for my testing informed me that the emotional link created by the first marking is exceptionally strong, with both parties exhibiting intense protective and possessive instincts, which made Xiaoqi's behavior entirely normal. Particularly, the marked party experiences heightened needs. He inquired if I had not felt this way. I thought of my sleepless nights filled with anxiety but chose not to voice it. Surely, that did not count. A few days later, I became wiser, locking my door before bedtime, yet that night, I could not fall asleep until 2 in the morning. My sleep quality was poor, plagued by anxiety and vivid dreams, only gradually stabilizing by midnight. At dawn, when I opened the door, I found Xiaoqi, wrapped in a blanket, collapsed against my door, blinking awake and greeting me with a good morning. I was exasperated as I pulled him into my room. "What are you doing?" Xiaoqi merely reclined on my bed. "Sleeping, of course. If you want tea, let me sleep inside. Then I must sleep outside the door. I'm so tired. I just want a nap." I grasped his arm, attempting to haul him up, my annoyance palpable. "Go back to your own room." As he rose, he effortlessly pulled me into his embrace, his strength catching me off guard and sending me sprawling onto the bed. What a rogue. Since when had we grown so comfortable with one another? He truly vexed me. "You!" I attempted to prop myself up to scold him, but Xiaoqi pressed my head down against his chest with his large hand, rubbing his chin against my hair. "Be good. Just sleep a little longer." At my wit's end, I pushed him away and slapped him across the face. "You've brushed your teeth and washed your face. Why do you pretend to be tired? What do you truly want?" Xiaoqi's gaze darkened, his expression unusually serious. "I want you to take responsibility for me." I stared at him in disbelief, incredulous. "Are you serious? But you used to dislike me greatly. Don't tell me I misread your feelings." Xiaoqi proceeded to share his journey of emotions with me. 03. Before Xiaoqi clicked on the viral post titled Serene Guanyin, Kind-Hearted Bodhisattva, unveiling the perfect alpha from the biology department, he never anticipated he would develop feelings for an alpha. As he scrolled down, a high-definition close-up image filled his screen, featuring a person with downcast eyes and slightly pursed lips, cradling a bloodied kitten in his arms, his pale gaze imbued with compassion. Xiaoqi had never been one to idolize celebrities, and was well aware of the tendency of new media to create icons, yet he found himself unexplainably captivated by everything related to Song-yi. He attended public lectures he had never previously considered, showing up every week without fail. As Song-yi's mundane and tedious life gradually came into focus, he found himself ensnared by an unusual emotion he could no longer withdraw from. The dynamic between alphas was intricate. He began to socialize with friends over drinks, only to be cornered one day by a group of predatory alphas who leered at him, inviting him to have some fun. Xiaoqi felt nothing but revulsion. When his gaze drifted towards Song-yi, he tentatively sought help, only to be met with rejection. Why is it that the little cat I went to such lengths to rescue shows me no pity? He was nearly ready to embrace a dual alpha relationship, having once held steadfastly to the traditional notion of an alpha-omega pairing, believing he deserved a life of normalcy. Xiaoqi projected too many expectations onto Song-yi. When these expectations went unfulfilled, he felt an overwhelming sense of grievance and bitterness. Driven by a compulsion to compensate, Song-yi treated anyone who showed him kindness with warmth, while he responded to Xiaoqi with cold indifference. Aware of his own psychological issues, Xiaoqi began frequenting the library. By a twist of fate, on one of those days he evolved into an enigma. I have been lost in pain and struggling. I turned the pages from biology to psychology, yet the vast ocean of books could not save me. It was only when I laid down the final book in the library that I realized only you can guide me. With every word he spoke, he drew closer, until the turbulent depths of his eyes reflected my small silhouette, his broad palm cupping my cheek. It was then that I abruptly recognized the perilous situation I was in. He was a fierce beast just awakening from slumber. I wanted to shake off his hand and flee, but he abruptly seized my wrist. He placed a kiss in my palm and said, "Song-yi, I like you and have marked you. According to universal values, we are meant to marry. The only question now is, do you like me?" Without waiting for my reply, he continued, "If you do, that is splendid. If you haven't fallen for me yet, shall we strive together? Regardless, we are destined to be together." There was a particular nonchalance in his tone when he said this. Once the observation period concluded, I returned to the dormitory to find Xiaoqi's belongings sprawled across my bed, boxes upon boxes cluttering the entire surface. He unexpectedly spoke up from behind me, "If you don't want to move into my apartment, I'll just move into your dormitory, and we can slowly cultivate our feelings." Our dormitory was a 4-person room, but it housed only me and Ji-hee. Ji-hee, captivated by the gaming console that Xiaoqi had gifted him, had no objections to his moving in. When we met, he excitedly pulled back my bed curtain. "Song-yi, come see the lavish gifts Xiaoqi has sent you. So many wonderful things." Upon glancing over, I beheld an array of exquisite luxury boxes stacked on my bed, filled with the trendiest belts, watches, and various electronic gadgets. This was Xiaoqi's unique approach to pursuit, entirely disregarding the rejection from the pursued, forcefully invading my life in every aspect, and bombarding me with sweet offerings until I eventually yielded. The act was all too familiar, a recurring theme at the nearby art school, where the outcomes often left the pursued in heartbreak. I suspected that Xiaoqi's confession that day was not as sincere as it appeared. Perhaps it was merely the pheromones conjuring a hazy illusion of love, and I could not stake my entire life on his delusion. I returned the items from my bed to Xiaoqi's, stating, "I cannot prevent you from residing in the dormitory, but I cannot accept your gifts, nor will I accept you." Xiaoqi gazed at me steadily, his expression darkening. Just as I anticipated he would forcefully act against me, he unexpectedly raised a hand to tousle my hair. "If you dislike these, then so be it. I will send you better things in the future." Any further discussion was futile. One cannot awaken a person feigning sleep. Thus, Xiaoqi inundated my life with his extravagant presence, employing countless tactics to win me over, leaving my classmates astonished by the sudden improvement in our relationship. I remained unyielding, erecting a barrier of indifference around me, resolutely rejecting all of Xiaoqi's efforts to please. Occasionally, he would voice his grievances. "Song-yi, you are making no effort at all. It's hard to please you since you desire nothing from me." I had never accepted any of Xiaoqi's gifts and continued to work part-time at a cafe off-campus during my free time. After a few days, the cafe owner cheerfully brought Xiaoqi, clad in the same work uniform as mine, before me. "Little Song, little Xia will be your colleague from now on. During this trial period, you will train him in coffee making." Our eyes met, and he winked at me with a smile. Was I really expected to mentor him as a part-time barista? I politely declined, but the owner promptly raised my hourly wage by 20. Lured by the prospect of increased earnings, I acquiesced. I began by teaching him the basics of coffee beans and grinding coffee powder. Xiaoqi showed no aptitude in cooking. His hands became clumsy whenever they touched the coffee cup. After a few days, he insisted that I teach him how to create latte art. I took a brief moment to instruct him once, then left him to practice on his own. One evening, as the cafe's patrons dwindled, he presented me with a cup of latte coffee. "Little master, please enjoy your coffee." I took a glance at it. The tulip latte art was beautifully executed. I sipped it gently, savoring the rich and smooth flavor. "Not bad," I remarked. Xiaoqi beamed. "Then I will take charge of all your coffee from now on." I furrowed my brow, sipping my coffee to mask my silence. After I finished the entire cup, he reached out to delicately wipe the coffee foam from the corner of my lips, his throat bobbing. "You drank too quickly. You have quite a bit on your lips." It felt overly intimate. Trying to maintain my composure, I urged, "You should get back to work." On a chilly night at the end of December, Xiaoqi dragged me, who was studying for final exams in the library, all the way to the rooftop of the tallest building. I had grown accustomed to his penchant for surprises. The wind was fierce and cold, and I released his hand. "What do you want to do by bringing me here?" Xiaoqi's eyes darkened momentarily. Then he pointed casually towards the sea beyond the campus. "I have a surprise for you. Look." The sea was shrouded in darkness, save for a bright moon hanging in the sky. Just as he finished speaking, blue fireworks exploded like a peacock unfurling its feathers, illuminating the entire ocean. This grand display of fireworks seemed to signal the commencement of a celebration, bursting above the hundreds of ships floating on the water, lighting up the surface like daylight. I was thoroughly captivated by the spectacle, completely oblivious to the kiss he pressed against my lips. He blinked. "Happy birthday." I took a moment to appreciate the fireworks, calming my racing heart. As I glanced down, I noticed Xiaoqi's pant leg was soaked and covered in fine sand. "Thank you. How did you know it was my birthday?" Xiaoqi wore a somewhat smug expression. "It's simple. Our class group often shares personal information surveys, and I noted it down when I saw it." I should have been resolute in my rejection, but the affection shining in his eyes made me swallow the biting retorts that had risen to my lips. Perhaps it was courteous to allow a little grace. After a while, Xiaoqi lamented, "I kissed you so quickly just now that I didn't get to savor it. Had I known you wouldn't hit me, I would have kissed you more." Silence. He added, "Song-yi, I want to kiss you again." With the fireworks completely faded from the ocean, I could no longer pretend not to hear him. I shifted the conversation. "The wind is too strong up here. It's a bit cold. Let us head back to the dormitory." He chuckled. "Will you let me kiss you if we go back?" Xiaoqi, who usually exuded arrogance, became brazenly shameless once we grew familiar. Reflecting on his past proclamations of pursuit, I secretly suspected that he had already assumed the role of my boyfriend. Once I returned to the dormitory, I lay down and was greeted by a night filled with bizarre dreams. I dreamt of the moment beneath the fireworks, where I clung to Xiaoqi's shoulder, kissing him in a bittersweet farewell, only for my deceased mother to burst through the rooftop door in a fit of rage. Her voice echoed with sorrow and anger. "Song-yi, have you forgotten how I died?" The shout struck me like a hammer, jolting me awake. I descended from my bed and strolled onto the terrace, lighting a cigarette. My mother passed away when I was 10. She was an exemplary omega, yet she was brutally marked by a scoundrel of a boyfriend and subsequently abandoned. She gave birth to me without the soothing presence of pheromones. Her spirit tormented to the brink of madness. The phrase she most frequently imparted before her demise was, "Never allow anyone to mark you, never place your trust in anyone." A mark is not a blessing, but a curse. The sudden appearance of someone I had not thought of for years in my dreams was undeniably a warning. My mother was cautioning me against treading the same treacherous path she had. I recall her often gazing at me with silent tears, her heart burdened with the fear that I might one day differentiate into an omega. It was not until I turned 18 and differentiated into an alpha that I felt a weight lift from my heart, freeing me from a fate of subjugation. How could I now, for the sake of fleeting affection, distort my very identity, willingly submit to Enigma's mark, and surrender my body and soul into another's grasp? From my childhood, my trust in this world had been irrevocably shattered. I approached Xiaoqi's bedside, silently observing him in the moonlight. He appeared to be lost in a sweet dream, his long lashes like feathers, the corners of his lips gently curved, his face still bearing the innocence of youth. He was endearing to the core. I silently offered him an apology within my heart. I am no mere plant. Even in the face of Xiaqi's overwhelming affection, I could not help but feel stirred. Yet, in this situation, regardless of my feelings, I could not reciprocate his affections. Fortunately, I had grown accustomed to being cast aside. Suddenly, Xiaqi turned over, tossing off the blanket. I bent to retrieve it, intending to cover him again, but found myself unexpectedly meeting his playful gaze. He grasped my wrist, pulling me onto the bed. "What mischief are you up to?" "Nothing. Let go of me," I replied, struggling awkwardly to rise. But Xiaqi's strong hand pressed against my waist, pinning me above his chest, forcing me to brace myself with my elbows to maintain distance. Xiaqi watched my frantic struggles with amusement, not letting go. How could a sheep enter a tiger's den and not be devoured? "Are you regretting not kissing me last night, standing at the foot of my bed, wishing to steal a kiss?" At his words, a pang of bitterness surged within me. Xiaqi remained oblivious that while he peacefully slumbered, I had fully resolved to abandon him. He unwittingly probed my stance with his words, his eyes sparkling with eager anticipation. "Why so silent? Have I embarrassed you with my accurate guess?" I closed my eyes, making a firm decision within. With a voice devoid of any fluctuation, I stated, "No. It is I who am restless and unable to sleep. Your self-important pursuit and self-satisfying surprise are merely a source of distress." Xiaqi's expression soured. "You," I swiftly interrupted him. "I have long told you that I could never develop feelings for you. I am an alpha. Xiaqi, the outcome of this wager is destined to be unsatisfactory for you. You should withdraw while you can." In an instant, the roles reversed, and a fierce kiss overwhelmed me. Just as I was about to suffocate, he finally released me, declaring, "But I have also said, you are destined to be mine. I will wager my entire life on it. Regardless, you can only love me in this lifetime. I shall never let go. You are solely mine. Mine. Mine." His fervent excitement stirred my emotions. Unable to withstand it, I shouted, "But I refuse to be transformed into an omega. This is my free will." Xiaqi fell silent. The tense atmosphere was akin to a taut bowstring. In the obscurity, his grip on my shoulder tightened. Just as I was about to stifle a groan from the pain, contemplating that someone of his privileged status likely cared little for others' opinions and was prepared to fight to the end, his hand suddenly slackened, and trembling tears cascaded down my collarbone, icy yet searing my heart. Since that night, I have not seen Xiaqi again. He discreetly inquired whether I had quarreled with Xiaqi. Upon witnessing my silence, he patted my shoulder. "You haven't been in good spirits lately. Have you truly made up your mind?" Xiaqi never shied away from pursuing me in his presence, and he was somewhat aware of the awkwardness in our relationship. The day we severed ties, he happened to be away, but he could vaguely surmise what had transpired. While reviewing my books, I replied, "Yes, please don't ask." He pouted and pushed aside my notes. "A life is but a fleeting autumn. I believe one should live according to their heart. For instance, today I have decided to take a break from studying and play a few games." Xiaqi was absent from the entire final examination, and I knew I would never see him again. He had departed, relinquishing all. Indeed, upon returning to school, I found that all of Xiaqi's belongings had vanished from our dormitory. The dormitory supervisor informed me that the housekeeper from the Xie family had specially come during the winter break to collect his things. Subsequently, my junior and senior years accelerated in a blur, busy with internships, papers, and graduation, methodically leading me to become a competent cog in the machine, employed at the Federal Institute of Biological Research. As a junior researcher, it was commonplace to toil until dawn for the sake of experimental results. I was not particularly adept at self-care. On one occasion, after 5 consecutive days of late nights, I collapsed from low blood sugar at the last subway station. I awoke in a hospital, where the nurse, after administering glucose, admonished me to prioritize my health above all else. I thanked her, only to discover that my medical expenses had already been covered. The nurse, noticing my confusion, explained that an alpha had brought me to the hospital and paid for the fees before leaving without leaving any contact information. She sighed. "Such a rare good alpha. When you were unconscious, he was frantic, his worry evident even behind a mask." She winked at me. "That alpha claimed not to know you, but I find that hard to believe. Perhaps he has been harboring a secret affection for you for a long time." I smiled faintly, brushing it aside. Upon returning to the research institute, Director Lee unexpectedly granted me a week's leave. This was astonishing. Director Lee was notoriously strict. When a fellow researcher in my group had acute gastroenteritis and requested a day off, he was promptly summoned to the office and reprimanded for eating unsanitary street food, which delayed the experiment's progress. I had merely suffered from low blood sugar, yet he, with a stoic demeanor, generously granted me a week off. When I informed Director Lee that I did not wish to hinder the progress of the entire experiment, he merely regarded me with a look of approval. Something was amiss. As I pushed open the door to leave, I lingered, catching snippets of Director Lee's phone conversation. "Ah, young Master Xie, this child, Song Yi, is too dedicated. There's no helping it, alright, goodbye." 3 years later, to hear Xie Qi's name from my superior's lips was astonishing. He knew I was working at the Biological Research Institute and that I had fallen ill, prompting him to call my boss to grant me leave. It turned out he had never truly left or given up on me. Had the alpha who brought me to the hospital also been him? A whirlwind of emotions surged within me as the office door suddenly swung open, striking my forehead painfully. Director Lee stormed out, glaring at me. "Why are you still here? I gave you a holiday. Hurry home and rest." I lowered my hand from my forehead and responded, "Yes." Director Lee paused, muttering, "Is an alpha really this delicate?" A mere bump and he tears up. I was ushered out of the research institute, traversing the street amidst the fleeting faces, returning to my rented room for a deep, dreamless sleep. I awoke in the dead of night, the car lights still illuminating the area below. My residence was in an old community, predominantly inhabited by middle-aged and elderly residents. After 11 p.m., the place was as quiet as a grave. It was peculiar for car lights to still be on at this hour. A strange sensation washed over me, and I refrained from turning on the lights, instead pulling back the curtain with bare feet. Beneath the rustling trees, Xie Qi leaned against the car door, clad in a black trench coat, a wisp of smoke curling from the cigarette in his right hand. He tilted his head back, gazing at the bay window where I sat, revealing a pale and gaunt visage. As if sensing my scrutiny, he waited a moment before extinguishing the cigarette and departing, leaving me to ponder the night away in solitude. I drifted through thoughts, wondering if this was the first night or merely one of many. He lingered below my apartment, waiting, wandering, then ultimately leaving. On the second day of the holiday, unable to resist the urge to return to work, I found solitude at home too conducive to spiraling thoughts. As I descended to the cafeteria for lunch, Director Lee intercepted me, requesting my presence in the adjacent dining room to meet a guest. Expecting it to be Xie Qi, I was taken aback when it turned out to be Ms. Lin Zhao. She remained as radiant as ever, yet the dark circles beneath her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. Once seated, she wasted no time, addressing me directly. "I wish to discuss Xie Qi with you. Ms. Lin, I currently have no ties with Xie Qi. If you seek someone to converse about your son, you may have mistaken the individual. I have work to attend to, so I must take my leave." Rising to depart, Ms. Lin grasped my wrist, worry etched upon her brow. "Please don't go. I want you to meet Xie Qi, he is struggling terribly." Others in the restaurant began to notice our exchange, some of whom were my colleagues from the research institute. I hesitated but ultimately acquiesced to her urgency. After a hurried farewell to Director Lee, she drove me to a villa. "This is Xie Qi's residence. He lives here alone," she explained. A surge of panic welled within me, and perhaps sensing my trepidation, Ms. Lin firmly led me to the bedroom door, the intense scent of rosemary invading my nostrils. Xie Qi was in a vulnerable state, and yet Ms. Lin had deceived me into coming. My breath grew heavy. I fear I may have arrived at an inopportune time. A pleading look emerged in Ms. Lin's eyes. "I am truly at my wit's end." He would rather endure monthly pain at the hospital for pheromone extraction and take suppressants than accept comfort from any omega or alpha. He has given up on life, resolved to endure this existence. I know he is doing this for you. I implore you to soothe him with your pheromones. I will grant you anything you desire. I fell silent. The door was pushed ajar from within, revealing Xie Qi, half hidden behind it. He wore only a bathrobe, likely damp from a cold shower, the chill visibly clinging to him, his weary eyes appearing even more sunken than the last time I had seen him. "Mom, I told you I don't need this," he said, his fatigue evident as his gaze fell upon me, trembling with emotion. I opened my mouth, unsure of what to convey. The door slammed shut. Moments later, Xie Qi's voice resonated from within. "Mom, it's futile. Don't pressure him. Let him go. His tone was calm yet desolate, causing Ms. Lin to weep uncontrollably. She wiped her tears and placed the key in my palm, her expression one of sorrowful plea. The choice is yours. With Ms. Lin gone, the vast villa was left to just Xiaoqi and me. I stood before the door, slowly closing my hand around the key, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. 5 years prior, I had decisively abandoned Xiaoqi, driven by an intrinsic insecurity and a mistrust of love's fleeting nature. Yet Xiaoqi was unwaveringly persistent, waiting through the cold nights beneath my building for a light to illuminate for him, retreating in solitude to lick his wounds during his vulnerable periods, yearning for a door to be opened for him. I lowered my gaze to my palm, the key resting there. Behind that door lay a beast of enigma. Should I open it, would I find untamed wildness, a heart laid bare, or a loyal guardian promising everlasting devotion? I did not know, but should I take the gamble? Should I dare to love him? Xiaoqi's perspective, the curtains were impenetrable, and Xiaoqi stood with clenched fists in the darkened room. Before opening the door, he had never anticipated that Song Yi would be on the other side. The chilling moonlight, the pristine snow, struck him with an overwhelming sense of trepidation. His mother watched him with concern. Realizing he must have been coerced by her to invite Song Yi, he felt an acute pain at the thought of any connection with her. Angered by this notion, he slammed the door shut. You came at my mother's behest, out of pity for her son. What is your reason for being here? He thought bitterly. Was it power's coercion? Sympathy? Compassion? None of these were what Xiaoqi sought from Song Yi. He longed for something far greater. Song's unwavering love, eternally faithful. He gritted his teeth, urging his mother to take Song Yi away. A temporary relinquishment was necessary. Forceful pressure and acts of conquest were not the correct expressions of love, a truth he had recognized long ago. Yet, knowing the depth of a mother's understanding, the astute Lin Zhao had placed the decision in the hands of Song Yi, the one in the position of emotional power. A secret hope began to swell within him, the air in the dark room thick with anticipation. 1 minute passed, then 2. Silence reigned outside. Xiaoqi's gaze dimmed as he reflected on his excessive expectations. After 5 years apart, how could he expect anything from someone as emotionally guarded as Song Yi? The sound of a key turning in the lock halted his thoughts. Bright sunlight streamed through the door, illuminating his face. He dared not close his eyes, fearing it was merely a figment of his imagination. The light stung, causing tears to cascade down his cheeks, glistening in the brightness. Song Yi appeared framed by the light, as if a divine being. With a tone that mingled resignation and acquiescence, he uttered, Xiaoqi, you have won your bet. I asked Xiaoqi 5 years ago, you wagered a lifetime, claiming we were destined to be together, and you emerged victorious. Just now, outside the door, I too gambled a lifetime, betting on your unwavering love for me. Will you allow me to lose? Xiaoqi stared at me, seemingly unable to comprehend my words. In the next moment, he seized my hand tightly, urgency in his voice. Never. I will never allow that. I will spend my entire life proving it. Upon saying this, his hopeful gaze settled upon me. What do you mean by that question? Is it as I think? I smiled, gently wiping away the tear stains from the corner of his eyes, assuring him, yes, Xiaoqi, we are together now. My lips brushed softly against his, the tender kiss short-lived, as Xiaoqi turned the tide, taking the lead. I melted into his embrace, feeling his fingers delicately trace the contours of my face. He murmured, Song Yi, even if your feelings for me are currently only sympathy or pity, I will not let you go. I will not let you go, he reiterated, entwining our fingers. Promise me, never let me go. After lingering in that warmth for a while, Xiaoqi awkwardly created distance between us. I should have someone take you home. After my sensitive period passes, I will come to find you. I noticed the awareness in his demeanor and took his hand, guiding him to sit beside me on the bed. Xiaoqi stood before me, our legs brushing against each other. Are we destined to be together for a lifetime? I inquired. Xiaoqi nodded firmly. I smiled. Then I permit you to exercise your rights as my enigma. Xiaoqi had always respected my wishes. He understood that I did not want to be transformed into an omega by pheromones, so he refrained from marking me completely, even when he found it exceedingly difficult. Until one day, as I watched children skipping joyfully past me, a surge of emotion akin to familial connection flooded my heart, and I felt the time had come. That evening, I wrapped my arms around his neck and whispered, "Let us have a child, shall we?" Xiaoqi was elated, embracing me and confirming my words repeatedly. I found it somewhat amusing as I playfully patted his thigh, saying, "Why the excitement? We haven't even begun." Xiaoqi responded with a mischievous grin. "After all these years, do you still doubt your husband's capabilities?" I chuckled. This is what love embodies. It tempers the conqueror and ensnares the restrained. 15 years later, I triumphed in my wager. Xiaoqi loved me for a lifetime. I, too, ensured that he did not lose. I no longer arrived late to his life, nor did I ever depart prematurely. The narrative concludes here. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to our next story.